2017 finds me in the clutches of revolutionaries, and my family in the clutches of Captain Ron. Next stop, Carnival in San Juan. Or so we thought.
Hey everyone. Well, that was a clip from one of my favorite sailing comedies. The movie is called Captain Ron. It has Kurt Russell and Martin Short. And if you are into comedies and if you're into sailing, then I recommend checking it out. I actually had my daughter with me that weekend, and she loves comedies, and we were looking for something funny to watch, of course, and came across Captain Ron. I've seen it before quite some time ago, and she's seen it before as well, but it was definitely worth seeing for a second time. Well, this video isn't about sailing comedies, actually. It's about Dorade boxes and ventilation cowls. But before I start talking about that in too much detail, I did spend the entire weekend with my daughter, and the next day after our movie night, we went to Vancouver, to Cole Harbour and Stanley Park to take a walk. And even on a gloomy day, you know, Vancouver is such a beautiful city. One of the things that I love about this city is the contrast between the marinas and the boats and this big beautiful city right behind it. So I took a few photos, and I'll share those with you now before I start getting into too much detail about the Dorade. And I put a little music to it, so hope you enjoy the next minute or so of that, and then we'll get into it. So what is a Dorade box? Basically, it's a box that sits on the deck, and on top of the box is a ventilation cowl. The position of this box on your deck will be right above an opening that goes to the cabin below. This opening will usually be a pipe or a tube, and it's going through from the cabin to the top side of the deck, and it'll raise above the deck probably a few inches. So you can see in this diagram that this will allow a free flow of air to come through the ventilation cowl into the box, up and over and into that pipe and down into the cabin. The reason you have a Dorade box and not a ventilation cowl affixed directly to the cabin top is that if any water or ocean spray gets into the ventilation cowl, it'll go into the box but not into the cabin below, and it'll wash out through little openings in the box back onto the deck. Now, the Dorade box and ventilation cowl aren't new to my boat. They were on here when I purchased it, but what happened a couple years ago is that during one of my races, things were happening very fast, and it was a quick jibe with the spinnaker, and one of the crew members kicked the ventilation cowl off. And it was just a cheap little plastic cowl, but I just never got around to replacing it, and I thought if I ever was going to replace it, I would like to replace it with something nicer than that cheap little plastic cowl. And I was just recently at the Vancouver Boat Show and saw they had some deals on several items, and I found a nice new ventilation cowl. Now that I had this new ventilation cowl, I thought it would be a good time to take the box off, strip it down, sand it, revarnish it, and put the new cowl on, and I would have a nice new shiny Dorade box and ventilation cowl. So I'll give one more quick explanation of how the Dorade Box and Ventilation Cowl work, and this time I'm actually up on the deck and using the actual box and cowl to show you. So here's what everything looks like on the deck, and basically the air enters into here and it goes down, and the reason you can't have that go directly in is because if water goes in there, it'll go right into the boat below. So if I pull this off, again, you'll see that once the air enters in through the top, if any water gets in, it'll just drop to the deck here. And then I have this raised piece of tube that's all sealed, and the air would essentially go in through the top, comes down, goes up, and flows in down here, which goes into the cabin. And I have a little vent down there that I can open and close if I want to stop the airflow from coming in. Something else I can do is I can actually just rotate this, and I could turn it so that I'm catching the wind or the airflow, or I can turn it so I'm not catching the airflow. The varnishing is done, and the box has been sitting here for about 3 days since the last coat of varnish, and I just wanted to be sure it was really good and cured before I start handling it too much and mount it on the foredeck. I did a video quite some time ago about the formula that I use for varnishing the teak on my boat, so I won't get into too much detail, but a quick breakdown is 50% varnish, 50% mineral spirits for the first coat. That's so that it soaks in to the grain. If you just put 100% varnish on, it will tend to just sit more on top of the wood instead of getting into the grain because it's too thick. And I did that for the first 2 coats on this box because the location of this box will get a little bit more weather when I'm close hauled, so we get more salt water on it. So I wanted to make sure that I had a really good base. Then I did 25% mineral spirits, 75% varnish for the next 2 coats, and then the last 3 coats were 100% varnish. And of course I sanded in between each coat, as you saw, and this is what you end up with. It's actually pretty nice, I think. Maybe a couple little spots that aren't perfect, but well, it's far from perfect, the whole thing. But I'm happy with it at this point, so I'm ready to finish it off and mount it. Well, here it is, all ready to mount on the foredeck. Well, hopefully for those of you that didn't know what a Dorade box was, you have a better understanding of what it is now and what purpose it serves. And this is the time of year I enjoy doing little projects like that and getting the boat looking as nice as I can, and I really have a lot of fun just finding little things I can do to make the boat look better and be better before cruising season. This is the time to do these things, and I don't know, I find it a lot of fun and keeps me busy, keeps me out of trouble. So that's it for now. I will just keep staying busy, cleaning things, getting things ready for summer, and hopefully be out sailing soon. So we will see you guys on the next video.